All right, so again, we are going to find a trig value given another trig value. So we're given this information. We're given that a right triangle ABC with B as the right angle, and the cosine of A is 5/12. Find the sine of A if A terminates in quadrant 4. Here's what we want to do first. Draw an XY axis. And we're going to draw a triangle in the quadrant where it says A terminates. So it says A terminates in quadrant 4. So your triangle always comes from the origin and goes up to the x-axis. All right, so for all of these problems, when you're trying to find a trig value given another value, you're going to draw an XY axis, draw your triangle, draw an XY axis, draw your triangle in the quadrant that's given, and the triangle always comes from the origin and goes to the x-axis. Now it says that the cosine of A is 5/12. So the cosine, A is our angle in here. It's always at the origin. So our cosine is the adjacent. I'm going to change, I'm sorry, let's change that 12 to a 13. It's a little bit nicer of a number, my mistake. So I changed the cosine of A to 5/13. Sorry about that. So the cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And we want to find the sine. So to find the sine of A, I know that that's the opposite over the hypotenuse. So the opposite of that angle is here. So I need to find this side. So I could do Pythagorean theorem. Call that x. We could do 5 squared plus x squared equals 13 squared. And so we have x squared equals 13 squared, which is 169, minus 5 squared, which is 25. So x squared is 144, meaning x comes out to be 12. All right, any questions yet? Because there's a little bit of a spin in just a second. Any questions yet? All right, well, we know then x is 12, but remember it's in the fourth quadrant. So in the fourth quadrant, because that's our y value, it has to be a negative. So that's negative 12. Because really when we take the square root, remember the old plus or minus thing? Okay, so that opposite side is negative 12. Therefore, the sine of A is the opposite, which is negative 12, over the hypotenuse, which is 13. Okay, so again, we drew our triangle in the quadrant. We labeled the two sides. We found the third side, and then we did our trig ratio.
How did you know where to put the 5 and where to put the 13?
Yeah, I knew that because it said cosine, and cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So when I look at my angle here, okay, the adjacent side is here and the hypotenuse of the triangle is there. So you have to look at what's given to you. If it gave sine, then I would put the 5 and 13 at the opposite and hypotenuse.
Okay, that makes sense. And then last question, sorry.
No, that's okay. This is what we want.
So I know it's obviously not going to be the right angle, but how did you know that it wasn't the other angle that you were looking for?
Yeah, you're always looking for the angle that is connected to the origin. And remember, your triangle always goes to the x-axis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you always draw your triangle to the x-axis, and you're always looking for the angle at the origin. So we'll do another example just like it. So good questions, keep them up. All right, so let me give you guys another one here. Real similar example. All right, so let's say given right triangle, XYZ, with Y as the right angle. And let's say the tangent of Z is equal to -3/4. We want to find, what did we find last time? Did we find the sine? Let's do the cosine then. Let's find the cosine of Z if Z terminates in the second quadrant. All right, so given right triangle XYZ with Y as the right angle, and tangent Z is -3/4, we want to find the cosine of Z if Z terminates in the second quadrant. All right, well, here we go. Remember, draw an XY axis first. Always do that. So we draw an XY axis. We know it's in the second quadrant. So our triangle goes into the second quadrant and to the x-axis. All right, we okay so far? Wasn't a real perpendicular line there. It didn't look real good. All right, now it says the tangent is -3/4. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So that means that this is going to be 3/4. But remember, it's -3/4. Looking at this, it's key that it's in the second quadrant because this is not negative. This is the negative. Okay, the 4 would be the -1 because that's our x value and the 3 is the y value. So that's why you have to be careful about the quadrant that you're in.
Wait, could you explain that again?
Yep.
Why 4 is negative?
All right, our tangent is -3/4. So that means that this ratio is going to be 3/4, but one of them has to be negative so that the opposite over adjacent is negative. So looking at it, this is just like an XY axis. This is our X value and that's our Y value. So the 4 is negative because you go -X and then +Y. Okay, so now our tangent is -3/4. I knew that one of those had to be negatives. The negative goes with the 4. All right, so we drew our triangle. Now we're going to find the third side. So I'll do 3 squared plus -4 squared equals c squared. You might remember it's a 3, 4, 5 triangle, but if you don't remember your triples, that's okay. We know that c comes out to be the square root of 25. And c is a hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always positive. Always, always, always positive. And we rarely say always in math. All right, so we drew our triangle in the quadrant. We set up our ratio given this tangent information. We found the third side. So now what's left is find the cosine of z. So the cosine of z would be the adjacent, which is -4, over the hypotenuse, which is 5. So it'd be -4/5. Again, always working from, we had the question before, always working from that angle in the center.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yeah.
So is the angle that we're looking for always going to be like in the like center point of the x and y axis?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep. All right, you guys are on a roll today. These are good questions. If we wanted to find the secant of z, well, remember the secant is the cosine flipped over. So to find the secant of z, I just take the cosine and flip it over. That would be -5/4. So I could really find any of those trig functions. You know, I could find the tangent. I guess it gave us the tangent. If I wanted to find the sine would be opposite over hypotenuse. The sine would be 3/5. Okay, because we're always working from that center angle. All right, any other questions? Those were great questions today.